to die for a complete stranger? Well, today we're going to talk about one of the most incredible acts of sacrifice in all of history, and it happened in the last place you'd ever expect, an infamous death camp.
Okay, so let's dive right into the most intense part of this story. Picture this. You're inside the fences of the Auschwitz concentration camp. It's 1941. So, late in July, 3 prisoners managed to escape. Now, for the Nazis, this was a huge deal, something they couldn't let slide. They had this absolutely brutal policy of collective punishment, basically a way to terrorize everyone else into submission. And the rule was simple. For every single person who escaped, other innocent people would have to pay with their lives.
And what was the price for those 3 escaped prisoners? 10. The camp's deputy commander orders 10 innocent men to be picked at random from the roll call, and their sentence? It's just horrific. They were to be thrown into an underground bunker and literally starved to death.
You can just imagine the scene, right? Guards walking down the line, just yanking men out of the ranks. And then they point to this Polish sergeant, a man named Franciszek. The moment he's chosen, it hits him. He's gonna die. He just breaks down, crying out for the wife and children he knows he'll never see again. But right then, something completely unheard of happens. Something that had never, ever happened before in Auschwitz.
Out of nowhere, a man just steps out of the line. Prisoner number 16670. His name was Maximilian Kolbe. He walks right up to the commander, and with this unbelievable calmness, he makes the offer. He was literally volunteering to die for a stranger. I mean, can you imagine? The guards are just shocked. The other prisoners can't believe what they're seeing. It was this incredible act of defiance that just seemed impossible. So you have to ask, right? Who was this man? What on earth would lead someone to make a choice like that? To really get it, we've got to go back and look at his whole life.
Yeah, before he was just a number, prisoner 16670, he was a man named Raymond Kolbe. And to really understand why he did what he did, we have to rewind all the way back to his childhood, to this incredibly powerful vision he had that basically defined the rest of his life.
So if you look at his early life, you can see a really clear path taking shape. From a young age, Kolbe's life was this amazing mix of deep, deep faith and a really sharp intellect. I mean, he wasn't just a friar. This was a serious scholar who earned 2 doctorates by the time he was 28. But the moment that really set the course for his entire life, that happened way, way earlier.
He was only 12 years old, and he said he had this vision where the Virgin Mary came to him holding 2 crowns. One was white, which she told him represented a life of purity. The other was red, and that one stood for martyrdom. And when she asked him which one he would accept, he said he'd take them both. And believe me, that vision shaped every single thing he did for the rest of his life.
Now, you might think a vision like that would lead to a quiet, contemplative life, but not for Kolbe. No way. He became this absolute powerhouse of energy and action. He was a spiritual organizer, a publisher, and his work had a truly global reach.
Just look at what he did. He founded a movement called the Militia Immaculata, the Army of the Immaculate One. He started a magazine that grew to have this enormous circulation. He built a monastery near Warsaw in Niepokalanów that became a massive publishing center. And this wasn't just a local thing either. He founded monasteries in Japan and India. The man was basically building a spiritual empire.
And then, 1939 happened. The world completely changed. The German invasion of Poland put Kolbe and his entire operation directly in the path of the Nazi war machine. Suddenly, his mission of faith was about to turn into something much more dangerous, an act of resistance.
As the Nazis started their horrific persecution of Jewish people, Kolbe did something incredibly risky. He opened the doors of his monastery to refugees. And look at this number, 2,000. That's roughly how many Jewish people he hid from persecution, right under the noses of the Gestapo. And he wasn't just hiding people in secret. He used the most powerful weapon he had, his printing press. The monastery started putting out articles that were openly critical of the Nazis. He was directly challenging them, using his platform to fight back.
Well, you know how a story like that has to end. It was only a matter of time. On February 17, 1941, the Gestapo raided the monastery. They shut the whole operation down and arrested Kolbe. He was held in a prison in Warsaw for a bit, and then he was transferred to his final destination, Auschwitz.
And that brings us right back to where we started, inside Auschwitz. He's been stripped of everything, but he's still a priest. He's sharing his meager rations, comforting other prisoners. It's right here, in this hell on earth, that those 2 crowns from his childhood vision, The white one for purity and the red one for martyrdom, are finally going to come together.
Listen to these words. They're from Francisek Gajowniczek, the man whose life was saved. He said he was just stunned. He could hardly grasp what was happening. It was this unbelievable act, a stranger just willingly offering to die for him. He was saved, and because of that, he survived the camp and was able to tell the world what Maximilian Kolbe did.
So, in the total darkness of that starvation bunker, Kolbe did something amazing. He turned a death cell into a chapel. Guards and other prisoners later said they could hear prayers and hymns coming from that bunker. He spent his last days comforting the other 9 men, leading them in prayer even as they died one by one from starvation and dehydration.
After 2 weeks, he was the only one still alive. The guards were getting impatient. They wanted the cell cleared, so they decided to just execute him. According to someone who saw it happen, when the executioner came in, Kolbe just calmly held out his own arm for the lethal injection of carbolic acid.
So, what's the legacy of an act like that? I mean, in a place specifically designed to prove that human life was worthless, Kolbe's sacrifice became this powerful symbol that nobody could ever erase.
And here's the direct result of that choice, laid out plain and simple. Maximilian Kolbe died, but his story became this beacon of hope. And Francisek Gajowniczek, he lived. He survived Auschwitz, was reunited with his wife, and lived all the way until 1995, a living, breathing testament to what Kolbe did.
Decades later, his sacrifice was formally recognized by the Catholic Church. In 1982, Pope John Paul II officially declared Maximilian Kolbe a saint, calling him a martyr of charity. And what makes that moment even more powerful, in the crowd at that ceremony in Rome was an elderly Francisek Gajowniczek, there to see the man who died for him honored as a saint.
And that's what we're left with, really. Auschwitz was literally a factory of death. It was built to prove that hate could crush everything else. And yet, the story that has echoed through history, the one that has outlived the hate, is the story of one man's selfless, defiant act of love. It really makes you stop and think, what's the one thing that truly lasts?